I'd like to thank the organisers of this event to start with, because events like this are actually very important. If you think about all of the struggles that have taken place in Britain, going back decades, struggles like the anti-apartheid movement, they all started and developed through ordinary people like yourselves coming together for an event like this. And we also need to remember that there were many times in the anti-apartheid movement or in the Lawrence family campaign when it felt like it wasn't going anywhere, there was no hope. But then, after often years and years of struggle, apartheid did end, and the Lawrence family campaign did win some gains for us. And it will be the same for us on our struggles. And so we sent out the message that if you want to come to Britain to escape persecution, then we're going to make your life as difficult as we can for you. If, on the other hand, you want to be part of a cheap labour force in Britain, okay, then, and if you're willing to work without any kind of basic workplace rights, then maybe you can stay for a short time. Okay, that's what we've done. That's what's called managed migration. Okay, and in order to police that system, what you need is a massively expanded kind of policing apparatus, right, to make sure that your system of managed migration very tightly controls who comes when, how long they stay, what they're entitled to while they stay, and then that they go when you want them to go for your economic reasons. So you need to have all kinds of systems of surveillance, you need to have ID cards, you need to have all these kinds of policing measures as well, which is what we've seen over the last few years. And what we forget in this picture is what's happening in the countries that refugees and asylum seekers and migrants are coming from. One of the areas that I looked at is Filipino nurses who've come to Britain to work in our NHS, okay? And actually, because they work for less than other people, they're subsidising our NHS, right? But it's not just that. If you look at what's happened to the healthcare system in the Philippines, right, because of the debt that the World Bank and the IMF have imposed on the Philippines, right, they have to spend 8 times more on repaying that debt than actually funding their own healthcare system. So the doctors and the nurses who are coming up through the education system in the Philippines, who want to work in their own country to help their own people in health, haven't got that opportunity. They want to then use their skills in other parts of the world. And so you have a situation where fully trained Filipino doctors are retraining as nurses in order to contribute to the healthcare of a richer country like ours. And so they're paying a heavy price for any kind of increase in the care that the NHS provides. They're paying that price in terms of their low wages and the fact that they've been forcibly separated from their families in order to eke out some kind of living for themselves. Look at the Congo. You have a situation in the Congo of a war that's been going on since a decade or so at least, more than a decade, where I think at least 1 million people have been killed. It's one of the most severe wars that's occurred in the world since the Second World War. And the roots of that war are complicated, but one of the factors that we have to acknowledge is the trade in minerals that has been going on. With British firms profiting by trading with militias in the Congo and exchanging those minerals that are sought after for our mobile phones in the West in exchange for guns for those militias. So you have company directors who've been identified by international investigators, British company directors who've been identified as guilty of violating international trade rules by trading with these militias, who are sitting quite comfortably in their lives in Surrey or wherever they live, while the Congolese asylum seeker who comes here, fleeing that damage that has been done to that country by these company directors, the asylum seeker is the one who is put in prison or a detention centre, not the one who's actually guilty of a much bigger crime. And these contradictions run right through the system. There's a slogan from the anti-racist movement in the 1960s, which was, "We are here because you were there," right? The idea was when you had people coming from India and Pakistan and the Caribbean coming to this country from ex-colonies, white people would say, "Why have you come to this country?" Right? The answer that people gave was, "We are here because you were there. By going to India and colonising India, you effectively made us also citizens of your country." Right? And in a way, the slogan now is, for asylum seekers is we are here because you are there with multinational corporations, with the trade in arms, and all these other ways in which Britain profits from the exploitation of countries in Africa, in Asia, and other parts of the world. While the state tries to divide us in all these different ways, our task is to unite. The point is, if we're all on the same footing, if the state comes for one of us in the morning, if the police come for one of us in the morning, they're coming for someone else in the afternoon. If one group's targeted one year, another group is targeted the next year, and then the next year another group. And that's the basis on which we have to unite. At the moment, no doubt about it, asylum seekers are experiencing a kind of brutality that is unique and unprecedented. What happens to asylum seekers, say introducing a voucher system, that's going to happen tomorrow to the unemployed. They won't get cash benefits, they'll get vouchers because it will be tried and tested on asylum seekers. Same with ID cards. The ID card system, tried and tested on foreign nationals, will then be applied to other British nationals. And that's the lesson, that's the basis on which we can unite on these struggles. Working at that community level and trying to find that kind of unity where we identify those shared issues, which may be a policing issue, which may be an issue to do with workplace conditions. It may be an issue to do with something like ID cards. But that is the basis on which we can actually bring about real change. Thank you very much.